All right, here we go again. Buckle up. So, one of the things that has changed over the years is, the internet access and social changes have taken place based upon that internet. Something that is routinely spoken about is influencers and influence. So that's why we see rapid societal changes is these influence movements. That's really what we're looking at. Again, it doesn't have to be internet based, it could be family based, and the family could actually be influenced into it, right? Or peer based, right? Or both, or all the above. So what you're looking at and what we've been seeing is that there's possibly inappropriate and possibly illegal influence, criminal influence, influencing young people into things that even their parents wouldn't want them exposed to until they become more mature. Like even if they're not against LGBTQ or against trans people, they accept it, but they don't believe their children should be confronted with choices. And people mature at different ages. Kids mature at different ages. There's kids that are 18 that are really, 15-year-old in their mind. I was kind of naive. I didn't understand anything. Right. I mean, I wasn't absolutely being taken advantage of, but I was pretty naive. Right. So these are articulations and studies that need to be conducted so it can be presented to justify any type of limitation on youth access to whatever it is. So we're fighting influence, inappropriate influence, criminally intentioned influence. Correct. And I brought that up before. It's a moving of a person's will. So if you have influencers willing something and a child ends up in that, they could easily be willed into being trans or gay. I've studied the whole thing from one end to the other because they keep willing me, and then I pick up the wills alongside it. So if they try to will me to a sex crime, there's another side to it. There's a victim somewhere, and that victim is being willed around to be the victim. Right. So I see different sides of the entire equation, or metaphysical equation, I guess. But in some cases, it's physical. Again, they did use spycraft. Thank you, Larry. No, they attempted to torture me into being a criminal. Spent decades doing it. So that's what I call Project Artichoke, but I mean, there's a lot to it. Well, case in point, like Cash says he saw the files. Well, you're not going to find any Project Artichoke files, but yet it's going on today. So you see, it went underground. Now, an investigator might be able to decipher it from investigative files and from the activity of the officers. I know I could. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, sir. So that's what we're seeing. Again, the idea of articulating what we're seeing. And again, sometimes we call things talking points, and I use talking points. So again, President Trump did what a lawyer does, but he actually had a better argument than what he made. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure he knows that better argument. Because I think a talking point was already developed. It's not probably as mature as it needs to be. Again, I'm kind of developing it here. And I'm not really like a talking point kind of person. But again, we do need to understand the facts and articulate the best we can Again, Clarence Thomas sent out a blip. The other couple, Robert sent out a blip. That if you're going to take these things on, you have to have evidence and articulate, because they've already presented evidence and they've already articulated it. And really, they're at the point, I believe, that you're not going to be able to refute gender dysphoria, but you can again explain it the way I tried to explain it to all of you. Right. You're trying to limit the corrupt influence to confuse the child, which I believe is going on. And once people start making money off of it, then it's hard to break them of that habit. And I'm not saying there isn't transgender people, and I'm not even saying, like, if somebody's corruptly influenced, a child is corruptly influenced, and based upon corrupt influence, all of a sudden they have gender dysphoria, which is very possible, right? They have gender dysphoria. You can't say, well, because it was corrupt influence, it didn't happen, and they haven't changed. And then, so when you deal with the child, you have somebody that you have to treat differently than the adult. You always remember that part. Don't pull the child into the argument. And at some point, you might have, again, a professional should speak to the child and decide whether they can, move them back to not being trans. And again, what a doctor can't do in a year, they might be able to do because the child might just naturally change in 3 years. Well, one of the things is if you change the hormonal, again, I suspect some of gender dysphoria, the natural gender dysphoria, is from hormonal changes. So if you change the hormonal structure of a child, they may never come out of it until the hormonal structure changes back. So that's the other science as to whether birth gender hormones are a treatment for gender dysphoria. Now you have to be careful when you use birth gender hormones, because you have to study the breadth of the hormones. It isn't like you just give them testosterone. That might work, but if you give them testosterone, you might spill over into estrogen, and then it's reversing. Then you're actually feminizing a little bit. Right. And there may be other hormones that we don't know about that triggers this. It could be some other strange hormone that has that we don't believe has anything to do with it. So again, the studies weren't conducted to understand the science of it. So if a trans person says they're trans, yeah, they're trans. And, there's very few that aren't. I mean, there's some look like they're just trying to make money off. I know there's one guy, Vladimir, he dresses like a woman and he's not really trans. But he says, if I didn't dress like this, I wouldn't get the money to do the things in my life that I want to do. And he does some stuff where he's not dressed up. He does it, as a man. And when he does with it, he baits men into trying to flirt with him. And then he goes, "Oh, you're being a bad man." They try to press him for sex and stuff. They think he's a woman. It's kind of weird, but again, it's a different world than we grew up in. I think the biggest thing, I didn't realize it at first, but I did. I think by the time I was 18, that I realized that the Mummers Parade it was all trans. So while we were growing up, you look at the Mummers Parade, any woman in the Mummers Parade was a man, a trans man, a trans woman, I guess. So it did exist. I mean, so that's why I look at Trump. I'm like, Trump, you're from a different era. You know what's going on. You were gay people. You made money from gay technology or gay business technology. So yeah, it's looking at him like, yeah. The art of the deal included gay people. Right. All right, hang on a second. So what we're looking at is inappropriate influence. And influence is I brought it up years ago that the influencers, there's questions about influencers. Like, wait a minute, influence, what is influence? We're organizing this persuasion campaign. Again, in some cases, it might be illegal. Again, Elon likes to say free, speech is free, should be absolutely free, but it's not because there is criminal intention in some speech. And again, quite frankly, I believe the political donation system has fraud in it. Like you're defrauding the people that give you donations. I mean, again, I can't fight shitty halls. It's not city hall; it's shitty hall. It is what it is. But again, I give people food for thought. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry. So that's really what we're talking about. Again, you've spoken about it. And the question is there another mechanism to fight it instead of just completely getting rid of access to something? Obviously, I will tell you that access to things that kids couldn't see could ruin their life, could help them, and it could hurt them. I mean, the access to things to see can help them or hurt them, and again, it hurts them when they see things they shouldn't see. So again, growing up too fast, too soon. I speak about the bait kids, and I'm like, they're probably more sexual than I am. Don't bring them around me. And then who knows what you put in their head. Right. I agree there. So again, influencing a child to want to trap an adult, that's disgusting. Correct. While you're manipulating the adult to possibly feel something for the child by manipulating adult and child presence, right? And adult stimulation around child presence. This is what they're doing, man. That's what they're into. Don't let them lie. So again, that's probably where you want to go, is to study. You don't want to be a Nazi, about it, but well, then we have to leave Elon out. But you want to study influence. And again, you all used to influence. That's part of how you got where you did. Right. I think Trump hit due diligence. Like he got a due diligence credit to get elected. Because if you look, he was like falling over. And he just kept pounding the sidewalk, and politicking and campaigning, right? I think that's part of what got him there, because he was. I didn't think he was going to make it. This last couple of weeks, he was like, I got this drip going on. Well, it's going to change, and I think it's extreme for today and tomorrow. Then it goes down to very high, and then it goes down to high. I think when it goes down to high, this will probably minimize because the temperature is going to rise up. Right. I think it's probably the humidity is going to rise up, right, a little bit. But this stuff's going to melt. Today's the last kind of cold day. Doesn't really seem too cold because it hasn't been dropping as low as it's been, like 0 degrees. Right. Well, I've been articulating what you're supposed to be doing to fight what you say you're fighting. Again, inappropriate influence, right? And the science that might say there's alternative treatments for gender dysphoria. I used a little bit of andro in my life, and I would think for, I don't know how many cases. Again, the doctors can't even tell you how many cases. But I believe birth gender hormones would take care of a portion of gender dysphoria. So again, it doesn't make sense that you try cross-gender hormones before you try birth gender hormones. It doesn't make any sense. In fact, that's something you might want to do. They should try birth gender hormones first. But you have to be careful about the influence. If you're a doctor counseling a child, and every time the child goes home, they go to the trans chat room or something where the influencers are influencing them, then they're not going to come out of it. Again, it's easier to live a life birth gender than it is transgender. So that's where we should try to get the child, or place the child. Again, I'm not into any type of forced thing in either one direction or the other. Thank you, Larry. Well, it just doesn't make any sense to go to the extremes of cross-gender hormones before you try birth gender hormones. But again, there's a whole influence campaign to say that they actually need the cross-gender hormone or they won't be happy. It's like, selling anything in the marketplace, You need this, Cadillac or you won't be happy. You can afford it. You better buy it. You buy a Chevy, you won't be happy. Right. Again, same thing. And again, there are probably natural cases of transgender, but the question is, what is that? They still haven't studied it. They're saying it just is. I don't believe it just is. And again, when you look at hormones are funny because it could be a combination of hormones. You may find certain combinations of hormones in transgender people naturally. Whereas if you shift those hormones, they won't be trans. Or counter those hormones or whatever it is. Or maybe even like in a child, outgrow those hormones because we know that happens. Again, when I was growing up, you don't talk about it. Every once in a while you read about it, but that was it. How children go through the different stages in adolescence and puberty, and there could be a point where they, feel feminine or masculine outside of their birth gender. So it doesn't have to be testosterone, or it could be testosterone with a combination of something. It could be something that was triggered at birth. Again, maybe the mother had a high level of feminine hormones and gave birth to a boy, and there's something in his hormonal structure that's a little bit off. Again, these things are, psychology is the same thing. Hormones can be used to treat psychology. Again, we do it all the time, but when I say it a certain way, it doesn't click because there's a block on it. But we do it for women. Hormonal things affect their psychology, and sometimes they take, estrogen or something like that, so their psychology returns to normal. So there's a lot to do before you get anywhere with it. We haven't researched it, and again, because the forces are deciding that once transgender, always transgender. Right? Those forces need to be moved out of the way so we can. And again, if that's where it takes us, then fine. But I don't believe that's true. I believe there's something that altered them. I know there's an influence campaign. I know there's a metaphysical influence campaign. Right? And there's a physical influence campaign. Right? And there's parts of this, like if you take hormones, you feel great. You feel better. I'm kind of, I even you can even naturally increase your hormones. If you're a man, and it might work for women too. Again, women with testosterone aren't naturally or automatically men. Like if a woman increases her testosterone, she can feel good about herself and still feel feminine. But if she goes over a certain point, then it affects her. Right. So again, that's the other part where you may see the same hormones in everybody, but then you look at levels and you see higher levels of one thing in a trans person or a combination. Right. So hormones will make you feel something about yourself, make you feel euphoric at times. So if you give a 14-year-old hormones, a boy, he's going to feel better about himself. So again, some of it is an addiction to the hormones, and it may be treating an underlying psychological issue or a underlying hormonal issue. Again, if you give a boy female hormones, he'll feel good. But if you give him male hormones, he might feel better. Right. Or anti-estrogens or something like that. Thank you, Larry. I'll tell you, they scumbagged me earlier. One of the other things they did, I was taught to use. I got the idea to use growth hormone. I never did. I used some natural stuff that may have kind of mildly increased it. But I think the Lord was trying to help me not have the issues I had later in life. So, when I was in Naples, I was seeing growth hormone, but I didn't know when I was online, I was being willed down. I was like looking it up. It was like $300 a month, a shot, or something like that. I don't remember, or every other month, whatever it was. The aging clinic or something. Well, that probably would have, stopped what was happening in my body. The degeneration was brought about by them. I was trying to live a life where that wouldn't happen, and they were blocking it. And eventually I couldn't break through. I couldn't even buy a vehicle when I wanted to buy a vehicle. The only way I bought a vehicle is I was already injured, and I couldn't do anything. And I bought it online, sight unseen. I couldn't even drive around and buy it. I was so injured. But they've been blocking me for years, and they knew it. Again, they're psychological operators. They're criminals. And they stole this nation. And they're addicted to it. They're addicted to harming people, to changing people, to what they say they should be. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, sir. So I am healing here quite a bit. I think another couple days would be pretty good. You know what I found out? If you buy certain cell phones from certain companies, they'll just automatically give you something for your cell phone that you turn in. I found a cell phone that they give $700 back on, and you can buy it, or $710 for, and what you do is you go buy a brand new $39 phone and turn it in, and they give you $710 credit. Isn't that crazy? That shows you the overhead on the phones, right? A lot of it is you have, like, you can't do payments because then they'll just give you credits on the payments, right? You have to buy it outright, and then they'll give you a credit eventually. You got to make money, or you got to have money to make money, right? I mean, you got to have credit. If you have credit, you put on a credit card that they, within a couple of weeks, they give you the money back. Right. So again, there's a lot that hasn't been done, and I've been trying to get everybody to do it. And I said, you conservatives, you have a point of view that's true, because I'm the one that brought it up. I said, be careful. I said, don't worry about the trans people as much, but you need to be, because you're attacking the drag queens and all. And I know there was an influence campaign there, and when it's influence, it's influence. Where it's not influence, it's not influence, right? But I said, you have to worry about the children. You have to worry about the influence, and essentially, I didn't use that term, but how they're influencing the children, right? And what they may be doing. Again, I saw cases of Munchausen by proxy, no doubt. Again, I can't prosecute somebody just because I see something, right? You would have to prove it. So the parent is essentially, and again, this happens. We see it in a lot of different places. At a certain point, it becomes criminal. It's not all the cases of inappropriate influence or maybe criminal. I mean, we see parents go crazy and attack another family's cheerleaders. So again, this is something. The psychology of the parent getting overly involved in something is historically trackable and traceable. Right. So I did see. I'm sure I saw some cases of Munchausen by proxy. I saw children that were most likely, again, they're making $1 million online or something from a young boy that's a girl now. Because why? You know why. Right. I mean, it's not really porn, but right. Now, some of it, like the LGBT, there's some LGBTQ. To be honest, there's some LGBTQ people that are honest and they believe in all that stuff, and they're sending money to them because they want to encourage them to keep going and not be afraid and that kind of thing. So again, the same thing with President Trump. That woman, she's living a certain life, and we don't even have to go to the point that she might be gay or she supports gay people, because she's not a cop. She's not a government person. She's not somebody that understands psychology beyond a certain point. She doesn't, social influences. So again, she's not attuned to the knowledge that we have. And again, some people, they just go along with the conservative point of view. They don't even know why. Right. So again, you're going to get people, and we're going to run into people that feel strongly about something. And I don't really think. I mean, it's in a certain way, it's crass, but in a certain way, she's just a, please, she's through history, we've seen people that have, asked for mercy for certain groups of people and things like that. So again, we try to neutralize it and realize that that's all it is, and you're still doing what you're doing, and there's a reason you're doing it. And that's probably the best place to have went there. Again, attorneys do that, but we didn't have to go to that level of argument. We could have used, our safety concerns, and I do have safety concerns. Now I'm probably the first person that told the Republican Party that they're really looking at something that they don't need to really look at as much as something else, and then they moved on that. And again, they're dishonest people, and they're trying to deny that anything exists. And again, if I don't know if Trump believes nothing exists, I'm sure it exists. But the question is, what is it? Well, again, we live in a world where we have different foods available, a lot more soy that's estrogenic. So there's a lot going on, right? And again, environmental changes. I'm trying not to get too out there, but they have said that I don't know what the amount is, but the male sex organ has increased in size across the board. So again, this could cause something, or whatever's causing that could cause something else, is what I'm trying to say. So there are things going on in the body. I believe that's probably that they have better nutrition. I think that's what it probably is. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But again, once you change nutrition, once you change what a child, again, quicker, what do they call that? Maturing quicker might be part of it also. No, I don't believe science has moved far enough in gender dysphoria to really understand it. And again, that would be an inappropriate influence causing that. Again, if they do question it, they might lose their, they get pressure. Sheriff starts following them. Some places, sheriff, they may, because again, the sheriff follows people based upon getting a call from somebody. So if you're a doctor and you start questioning gender dysphoria, you might get followed. The sheriff may not know why he's following you. He may not care. He may just be corrupt. Right. Thank you, Larry. So again, that was probably going on. And I say, be careful of using that because, they use it. So we want to be clean. Right? We want to clean the world. We want to stop pressuring people into doing something they don't want to do. Right. So I think we got a lot on that. Right. Well, there's a way lawyers argue, and Trump kind of went in that way, in Donald being Donald way. So again, we didn't need to say anything about her, and you can actually honor it and say, okay, I understand your concern, but we have a larger concern that immigrants aren't even safe. So again, remember to bring that up. We can't police what's going on because we have this unaccounted for community. And they're not assimilating. And some don't even learn English. So even if they wanted to tell us something's wrong, it's very difficult to communicate. And of course, it's very uncomfortable for them to communicate. So, well, she's right to a certain degree. I mean, she's not wrong. But again, there's for lack of a better term, there's something that trumps her argument. There's a larger argument that we need to work on. Now, you did great on, I guess, Tuesday or on Wednesday. I don't remember what day it was. They said you got 300 and something criminal aliens, right? Or at least public safety threats. Again, I imagine the public safety threats are gang members and things like that. Like, in other words, they're not always charged with a crime, but there's evidence of gang membership. And again, that's disqualifying. Right. So again, you got 300 people or over 300 people under control in 24 hours or something like that. And these people affected the other immigrants. I mean, they don't respect elderly people. Yeah, not all of them, but a lot of the gang members, they'll muscle elderly people that are an immigrant like them. They don't care. Right. So again, her argument works because it does. I mean, her argument works, but there's a larger argument, a more present danger argument that we have to handle first. So when I know Trump's saying everybody's going, but at a certain point, it may not be feasible. We just have to see. Well, we're not going to, if we're looking at crazy inflation, we're not going to do it. I mean, can't. I mean, you'd be insane to do it. I mean, you'd be cut your nose off to spite your face. So again, Howard Lutnick and Besant, whatever his name is, I think his name is. We have to get our people out there, and there's other people that work with us. Again, Mr. Bezos said he wants to work with us. Mr. Zuckerberg. Was it some of the other people? Whoever it was, Tim Cook, and so the idea is this: that we have a community of people that don't have money, and we need to make sure. Again, we do some subsidy and all that, but we need to make sure we keep inflation under control. If you have money, if you have profit, maybe just one of the problems is, again, with the idea of being the richest person on earth, being this, being that. I mean, these are things that are artificial. Right? If you're doing well and you have profit, you're doing great. But okay, if I drop my profit from 5%, or let's just say 5%, let's just say 5% profit down to 4%, then my stockholders are yelling at me. So again, we have to realize that we're in a different kind of paradigm, and we have to learn how to correct that where it doesn't really freaking matter. If the economy, if you as businesses keep, let's say your profit drops 1%. But yet you kept all the prices down for 12 months, it's actually better than having more profit because your profit's getting eaten up in inflation. I think I said this starting 4 years ago or so, at least that go around. I'm sure I've said it before that. So again, again, the market is just psychology. It's a casino, psychology and casino. Again, we went through times when people didn't sell a darn thing because the psychology held up, but they probably, normally would have sold off. Correct. The market's not real. It's really not real. It's psychology and sociology, kind of like a market social network. Again, there's some scam and sham, but so we're in a different world where everybody's worried about and then the flow of information is so quick. Oh my God, that went down 1% for profit. So again, we have to decide how we're going to do that. This is one of the problems with inflation, that if you don't maximize a profit and you go backwards, and then they want to fire you as the CEO and the CFO, and right. So you have to sit down as a community and figure it out. I mean, a lot of you aren't poor. I'm poor. I actually am. Again, based upon my work, I can't. It causes financial instability, even though I have, an okay amount coming in. It's just, it's just okay. As far as a poor person, I'm not a pauper, but I'm at that level where I really don't have enough, especially based upon my output. And the system has tried to pay me, but they won't allow it to happen. A lot of times, it depends on what other people do for you, whether you make it somewhere or not. Right. Again, even Elon. Elon would be a nobody if they didn't give him a chance. Right. So again, the deep state comes in and says no, and the other person says, "Oh no, then I don't want anybody. I want these people around me, including my own mother and brother." They worked them over, so I'm supposed to like them. Right. I'd had a house real quick. Right? It took a few years, but I got a house. Right. Because it got to the point that I wanted to leave him, and my mother said, "Well, I want you to stay. How about we go, get a house? You get a house, and I'll sign because my credit hadn't been fixed yet." Right. And then they did her, and she was so freaked out she couldn't. She goes, I got her to talk a little bit. She wouldn't come out, and the sheriff was following her and stuff. I mean, yeah, I should like the sheriff of Collier County, right? I mean, I presented myself as a nice person. I was still younger, and I said maybe I'll get past this. But I mean, I immediately started chatting with the cops, in the gym and stuff like that. I mean, I was a good guy, but that makes them mad. They try to insinuate I'm trying to get unfair advantage. They're lying. They're the ones trying to get unfair advantage. Correct. I mean, I used to help cops all the time when I was with the marshal. I'd pull over on the side of the road, watch a traffic stop for them, do an overwatch. I'd put my badge out there to show them I was a cop. I did the contract, officer side job. I was essentially an officer side job boss. I mean, it was a marshal service, but I ran a lot of that program. And I didn't ask for corrupt influence. I just asked them, do your work, right? Do your job. In fact, I was actually probably an easygoing boss. I had no reason, to not be. I didn't believe in heavy-handedness. Like they'd work for some people, and they would just dog them all day, right? And talk shit. I wouldn't do that. And if I could get you lunch, I'd get you free lunch. I mean, there's no reason for my life to have taken the turn it took. Correct. I mean, these are spies, man. Spies and people who are trained by spies need to be eradicated, destroyed, imprisoned, and sent off to hell. Bye. So again, you need to sit down with your business leaders I just, Hashem, God is blessed, and I saw a little bit more. Even though I've spoken about it before, I think I've clarified it a little bit more. Right. And again, we could be looking at Putin, and Putin may be the one to put that in our community. So he can manipulate people. I don't know if the KGB did it. I mean, they do some of it. Right. And if they identify it, of course, they'll use it, even if they didn't put it in there. Thank you, Larry. Well, we're creating. A world was created where people's behavior, desires, just their natural inclinations, are now causing inflation. So you actually have to fight the paradigm. And the only way to really do that, you have to change the paradigm. But if they change, if they'll tell you, if you have to change the paradigm, they'll fire me. Or they want to invest in my stock because now I'm down to 4% and the other person's up at 6 or whatever it is. I see. So again, you have to take everybody aside and say, look, we need to keep inflation down. We need to figure it out. I think it pays back in the end. I think I do in my mind, with God, and I worked this thing out that if we drop the prices, they buy more product. So but again, it's kind of like a lazy way of making money if you inflate the prices, because then you don't have to do as much work to get the same amount of money. So again, they have to pull together. Again, we can call it price gouging, but they need to honor. Okay, so at this point, but again, we still have the same problem. Maybe not. So if you drop the regulations, and if the regulations are dropped and it causes them to have less expense, if we drop the price of diesel and gas and it causes them less expense, they still have the profit. They theoretically would still have the same profit at a lower price. But then again, they may want to, if they get greedy, they say, well, okay, I want 7% profit. Therefore, I'm not going to drop the price. So they raise the price while you're reducing overhead and operating costs. Right. I gave this spiel, I think, 20 years ago. 10 years ago. I gave it during the first downturn, too, something like this. So yeah, they have to voluntarily cooperate with the program. Just because you drop operating costs, but again, you could be greedy. Trump might be greedy. Well, just send me the money, okay, and we won't drop the prices. You just send me the money. So again, you all have to pull together and get the prices down or keep them down. Well, it's if you keep the prices down and you increase wages moderately, you've done it. You don't have to increase wages crazily as long as you keep the prices down, and you can do it. Now, again, there's debt left over from COVID, and there's also during COVID, what I've God has showed me, and I believe this is true, that discretionary spending in everybody's life increased. We sat around, we had stimulus checks, we started buying things. Now, other people didn't pay their rent and took that money and went into discretionary spending. Some people bought houses with that money, right, that they saved, and then all of a sudden they owed that debt because it never showed up in their credit report. They were able to purchase houses. They don't pay their rent for a year. Save $1,000 a month, whatever it is. Right? And all of a sudden they can buy a house, $2,000 a month. All of a sudden they can buy a house. Went and bought a house. Now the debt shows up because at a certain point they no longer could hide it because the program ended, and that was somewhere in the middle of the Biden administration. So we have that. Like I said, I have good enough credit that I was able to get a loan with a respectable interest rate. I mean, it's not real low, but respectable enough. When I looked at the fee, not the fees, it was I think a no fee loan. But when I looked at what it would cost me in the end, it's doable. Right. So cost benefit worked out. So at least for a portion of the people, and again, that's the idea, is to get people to say, hey, burn the credit card if they don't have the income, and take the other route of a consolidation loan. Right. And then they have to drop their discretionary spending, which could slow down the economy, but also could decrease. So again, inflation wasn't always all because Biden did something. It's not all that. Some of it is people were spending more money, big discretionary spending. They weren't paying their rent, and they were going out and buying things, which they normally wouldn't buy. So that sent the prices up for a season. I mean, all of a sudden you have an extra $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 and went out and bought stuff. I would unless I had to, I would never not pay my rent. That's where the program went wrong. People were just voluntarily not paying their rent. Because that's a trap. Not paying your rent and letting it build up is a trap. And again, maybe there wasn't enough counseling about that in the beginning. If I had my health now, this has been ever since my health slipped, because they screwed me in Texas. I said, I'd live in because I bought a van. I said I'd live in my van, and man, I had that trailer too. I could have saved a lot of money. Well, actually, I worked it out in my mind that everything I had to do to be comfortable, like gym membership and all the other, it actually didn't. I didn't save all that much. I mean, I could still save, but based upon what I pay for a place to live, it wasn't all that much because of all the inconvenience and all the inconvenience fees and all that. What it would cost me, expenses. I'd have been down in the hundreds. I would only be saving in the hundreds every month. I actually looked at it and said, maybe not. Right. But when I was younger, again, they're talking about willing me down. I kept looking at Value Inns, and I probably should have did it. I was about ready to bounce out of Naples and just go on the road and go to Value Inns, and it was really cheap back then. Right. I should have did it. Now then they became Woodspring Suites, because I was much younger, and I would have had it would have been just better at that age group. Right. But again, when they stalk you, if they think you're going to do something, they will it down if it's not what they want to happen. Right. Again, they have governments, criminal enterprises, private sector corporations. They get money to attack me. You want a contract from the government, you attack me, and they give you a contract. Well, to a certain degree, like I said, this is coming up again. Uh, the bishop was kind of crass. She was kind of crass there. That's a little bit crass, you know. There's better ways to have handled it. I mean, she could have said something there neutrally to draw attention to herself and to Trump and the whole equation of where the nation's moving forward. And then afterwards, she could have granted interviews and said, "This is my hope," and that's it. That probably been a better way to do it. But I think people accepted what she did because of, we're just differing. We're different people. We're all different people. We don't agree with one another. Trump doesn't. The reason people agree with Elon and Trump is because they have a lot of money and they have a lot of power. They don't really agree with them. So again, we really don't agree with one another. So again, she's just, we don't agree. So I think a lot of people look at it as, it's not, hardcore. You have to be careful for that because you're surrounded by hardcore MAGA, but you're also surrounded by hanger-oners that if they won't help you if they think you're going to be angry for them helping you. In other words, I don't give a shit. They give a shit because they want the money, they want the fame. So they're not going to say anything that you don't want them to say. Again, maybe sometimes that gets me in trouble, but again, I'm with God and I have to be honest as I can be, right? Especially with the elevated knowledge that God has given me. Okay, and again, I'm big on this is like making us, again, don't fight checks and balances because this is how we design things to work. The system I described is like a check and balance system. That we make sure that we don't make the wrong argument. We make sure that the president has the information. Because again, the president's doing how many things did he sign? His mind's overloaded. So you have to provide an easy reference system as to where we are on it and what the proper argument is. And again, the president doesn't have to take that argument. But again, if he would have saw, no, we're the ones that are really at a higher level of concern about what's actually happening. And theoretically, you are. Don't junk it up with some BS. Like I said, I don't believe the transgender science has moved to where it needs to be. And part of the argument that I couldn't break through, and I wasn't trying to break through, I was trying to, what's the truth in all this, was the idea that these young people weren't detransitioning. But then I thought about it. And I said, well, wait a minute. When you transition at 12 years old, the chance of you detransitioning is a lot lower than it used to be when you transition at 18. So we have the conservative Trump supporter Blair, right? And she's a transgender woman. And I think she's been on Rogaine show, and maybe even Alex Jones. And that's pretty much what she did. I think she transitioned around 17 or 18. I think it was 18 probably. So when she was a kid, she just had some videos when she was a kid, a boy, and she was probably gay, but she wasn't transitioning, or maybe bi. I think I can't remember. Well, if you tell a child that the child's going to have the worst life in the world if they don't do this, again, put kids in karate, and all of a sudden they become, karate's the only thing they do, right? Put people in trans, or put kids in trans, and trans is the only thing they do. It's still the same mechanism. Oh, they ruined my life, man. They ruined my kid's life. They ruined my wife's life, my ex-wife's life. Right? It's just I couldn't get my ex-wife to realize that what she was experiencing wasn't real. That it was, manipulation. Again, I was just beginning to speak about it, and then we split pretty heavy because the people at my work had got involved, and they may have known that. I was starting to articulate what was happening to her, because the idea is to make you uncomfortable with speaking out. That's what they do, and they use spycraft to do it. Like I said, my mother couldn't speak out, but I got her to say enough. I realized they were stalking her, and they may have even drugged her. Right? She's been drugged before. I know she has. She came off a plane. She ate on a plane, and it wasn't bad food. Right? I was picking her up. They got CIA on those planes and spycraft operators, 100%. Don't ever doubt it. If you're a target of the deep state, bring protein bars or whatever you're going to eat. So I drugged my mother. She came off. I knew what happened. She came off. She said, I don't know what happened. I said, you eat on a plane? She said, yeah, okay, yeah. Don't eat on a plane, Mom. I said, we're billionaires without our money. They're going after you. I said, this is the way it is. We're targets like billionaires, but we don't have our money. Well, when they drug the other person, then they attack. Like, it's transference. They did it to my wife. They did it to my mother. They transfer what they're doing to her. They want her to lash out at me for what they're doing to her. My grandmother did it. Right. They triggered my grandmother. So again, they're not innocent people, man. They need to be destroyed and be destroyed hard. But until y'all do it, y'all just talk. I've already done it. How many years? How many years have I been fighting these muckety mucks? I actually started I think the first was the Border Patrol. I helped the Border Patrol because they were under attack. The Border Patrol was under attack by the deep state. Right. That was like 2007 or something is when that started, or 2006 even. So again, that takeover time period, that's what that was. Trying to again, takeover is sometimes just everybody stops speaking out about it. Right. That so again, getting it to that point. So I'm not accusing anybody of anything, and of course, you probably know people in the Border Patrol that were deep state and played that game with people, made a lot of money harming people. So there's no reason to take any crime personal as far as when you're in a law enforcement professional position or a correctional position, because that's where you get yourselves in trouble. Don't take it personal. Just do your job neutrally. The president can take it personal. The politicians can take it personal. You may be able to take it personal and succeed, but I wouldn't do it because you'll be more effective and you'll do it right if you just if you're just neutral about it. I mean, you should be realize that you either have been or will be around enough crime that the system's a system, and you just need to do your job the way you're supposed to do it. And again, we need people to feel comfortable about coming up and speaking to us. I used to just bullshit when I was a correctional officer. I would just bullshit with inmates every so often, and they would just tell me everything. I couldn't believe the stuff they were telling me. Right. They actually told me about a certain staff member before they busted her. I didn't know who it was. I just hinted. I put in my report that they're talking about some woman doing something. I can't remember what it was. You do a confidential report at the end of the night in corrections, right? Or you fill it out while you're there or whatever, right? And they got her like a week later or something. And she was smuggling something. It wasn't like maybe they looked at her because of my report. I don't know. It's sad. It's sad when that happens. Right. Again, you don't take it personal. Just realize that that didn't need to happen. I mean, what could we have done to make it? Again, that's the point. The way I look at it. How could we have fixed it so that a staff member didn't succumb to that? That's the only way to fix it. If you don't actively try to fix it, then it's going to. And again, she could be a victim of the deep state. They could have isolated her. And then she went after, had a relationship with an inmate. And some, it's surprising because some are very good-looking women. But again, the whole Marilyn Monroe isolation thing. Where are we at here? 8:27. It's going to be a long day. I went to sleep early last night, and then I couldn't get back to bed this morning. Because I went to sleep early, and I think I took a nap yesterday for a little bit. Kind of like dozed off. It looks like it's still been melting a little bit, even though it's not warming up too much. But again, tomorrow and the next day, I'll probably finish it up. Right. So hopefully the second half of this winter is going to be warmer. It looks like it might be. Went through a little bit torturous freeze, unless it changes. It looks like they're calling for much warmer weather and an early spring. That he hate me. I mean, what do you expect? All of you freaking idiots. They try to act like I never said anything. That's like bullshit. I mean, I didn't. You don't have to say something on social media to have said something. It's obvious what you're all doing. I mean, it's just bizarre that they would even think that it's okay to do what they did. So I don't know what you're moving to the border. As far as the officer being shot, okay. So we do it a million times. I think I don't know for sure. He's going to look at what's going on in the car because we're tracking them, and he doesn't want to alert them to anything, so he doesn't do a felony traffic stop. He's just going to go up and take a look at what's going on in there. So we do it a million times a year, and nobody gets shot. So cost, it sounds kind of whack, but cost benefit analysis says that may not be a reason for a policy change, such as it has to be a felony traffic stop. Right. Well, it's an investigative technique to pull someone over. And I believe that's where we were. I don't think it was. Well, my thing is when I first wanted to know what it was, I wanted to see if was it because every once in a while a thing will happen where it's just like an instant traffic stop. Officer walks up to the car and they're dead. Like instantly. Poof, that's it. And all they did was get out of the car, walk up to the car. It wasn't like, an active investigation. Thank you, Larry. Because that one you can heal pretty quick. And this one, again, just because it's not a felony traffic stop doesn't mean that we can't after action review it and see if we could have did something different. But again, I believe there's probably an investigative reason that it went down the way it did. It's not alert suspicion or something like that. Well, because when they said it was a traffic stop, I'm wondering, was this one of those whack traffic stops where the cop just walks up and they're dead? Because again, the mechanism on that one's probably easier to heal than. And something came up, and I don't know what it is, but again, it doesn't mean that it was an official behavioral analysis. But I believe that a behavioral analysis, whether it was on the fly or not, said that these people would most likely not draw down. Now, I don't know if this is all true. This is just what's coming into my mind. So the officers perceived that the risk wasn't as large as it was. And so that could be healed. So when you look at it as an after action review, well, they couldn't see. They didn't see. So you need to heal the vision, the sight. And I do that. Rafa, real easy. Again, it's in line with Rabbi Yeshua ben David. Rabbi Yeshua ben David, aka Jesus, says that you don't have to be long-winded because God knows what you want. So I used to think the word healed was stupid before I woke up. Like, you got to pray, and well, the idea is that's the epitome of what Jesus said. Just say healed. God knows what you want. Right. I even tell you the story, like I was watching T.D. Jakes and my mind was being hit. Oh my God, what's this guy? He thinks he's a healer. What's he healing? Nobody's healing anything. I'm like, I was a Christian, but I didn't know that part of it. And within a week, I was a healer. My healing information started. So weird. It's when I was waking up. It's like I went to my divorce counselor and I said, I'm not a mind reader. And then like within a week, I was a mind reader. Yeah, that ebbs and flows, Now, when I first woke up, it was really interesting, and I had hope. I had so much hope just being in a spirits community. I just couldn't break through all the blocks they had put in, and a lot of it was metaphysical, and you can't, because if you do, then it reverses on you. So again, the idea of not pushing through on something, sometimes Hashem, God will stop me because there'll be a detriment that we can't stand. The work won't get done. Again, that's why you don't let them stalk people, because they're applying that stuff, and they're also psychologically inhibiting their victim. So again, Hashem kind of foreshadowed. I don't know if I'm going to get the fireplace done or not, because if I build it, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Again, if I were to just take the ark and all that stuff with me, maybe I could just put it in a trailer and into a storage unit or something. But I'm actually close to being able to build it when I got sick. Again, that was a curse also that hit at the same time, the curse of not building the ark. So when I got to the point of building the ark, I ended up getting COVID and all this other crazy stuff going on. Again, that's why you don't let them stalk somebody. It's stalking. It's not investigation. It's stalking. I was stalked all those years. Again, I'm owed millions. The easiest way to do it, because I do deserve 100% VA disability, is to go back to 2017. I can't get it forward. I just don't have the wherewithal. Is for you to go back into the files, go back to like when I petitioned the last time in 2017, say there was a mistake, and prove it, 100% disability, and backdate it. That's probably the easiest way to get it started. See, again, I've always provided you with an outlet where you don't have to pay me damages or pay me for what I'm doing if you feel like you can't do that, which is bullshit anyway. I mean, they paid hackers and real criminals to do shit to me until they learned hacking, Right. No, our officers have learned hacking. They're hacking people for personal reasons. I mean, they're nuts, man. They're all just crazy people. There's no reason that they even are outside of a prison. There's no reason. Or a loony bin. This isn't retribution, it's reality. We've just passed through the darkest years of this world in a long time. So again, I'm hoping Putin can get forward. I'm hoping Zelensky can get forward to understand that war is an addiction at that point, a gambling habit. And you don't have to blame yourself for it if you get forward of it. Blame yourself until you get forward of it, because somebody probably put you into it. I mean, you know how much money they made off of that? These spies, they embezzle and shit. And some of the Pentagon people probably too. Pass the money to the cronies. That's where all Biden's money came from. all the war funds that they diverted. Well, you send money to Ukraine, a Ukrainian gives you a donation. Right. So again, let's end all that bullshit and get forward of it. Thank you, Mary. I mean, it was extreme duress. That's when I came to the conclusion. It's a hard thing to explain to people and for people to accept, but people are sex offenders because they're tortured into it, man. Not all of them, of course, but they're torturing people into sex offending, brainwashing them. They're brainwashing them into sex offending, and it includes torture. And they're devils, demons, antichrist, witches, and sorcerers. That's what they're doing. Give me a second here. I'll be back. I'm not. Stay peaceful. Praise God and all that you do.